Bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong. This is Joe, the bearded historian. He'll tell you an interesting history. Be careful of his soldiers, they can be brats. This is Angel, she's an entity. She'll cause chaos and plant her hands at you. This is Sue, she likes spirits, not the alcohol. She's the reason this channel exists. This is David, he likes fire trucks. He's here occasionally. Bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong. We preserve his story. Welcome to 2024, almost 3. Off to a good start. The 2023 wrap-up video is still in the works. That's behind schedule. If you didn't see my comment on the community page, I'm behind. Hopefully that won't be a thing very much in 24, but you know what? We do what we can, we do what we can, we do what we can. And yes, I said that 3 times for some reason. Anyway, today's video I think you'll enjoy. We go and see a Minuteman Facility. Very cool, very interesting. So hopefully you'll enjoy the walkthrough. Hopefully you'll enjoy the history. Don't mind the wind at the beginning. But before that, I have chosen a rocket ship race because, you know, we're shooting off into a new year. Right? Okay. Ready? Shout out time. Here's a shout out just for you. You support me, I support you. This shout out is for our friends. Let's see who it is today, okay? Put that down here. Hit the start button. There we go. We're going up. Let's see who I can see. I can see Laura. I can see Carrie. She Stole. Real Haunted. Treasured. Abandoned. Just Doing. She Stole. Trending. Aisha, Teza, Oma, Jackie, Hiking Ontario, Mona, Old Fart, AAP, Cruising Nuts, On Location. Let's see. There's Visiting, there's 755. On Location wins. Hold on a minute. Okay, On Location with Scott about photography. The joy of photography is the channel is all about. Will be tips, camera reviews, POVs, your videos reviewed, and much, much more. So if you like photography, or interested in photography, want to improve your photography, he's a good place to go. I suck at photography. I've gotten slightly better. But if you follow my Instagram, you know I'm not very good yet. I probably won't be. It's not my goal. Do I have a goal? Not for 24 yet. I'm debating and thinking about it. Do you have a goal for 24? Enjoy the video. Have a good day. Alright. Invisible Warriors, Front Lines, Prairie Ranch, Hedfield Missile Fields. Alright. Let's give you guys a glance at this.
So we're right here right now.
One park in 3 places.
Yeah. There's the Delta 9, which was back by Wall. Delta 1 here, and then the Visitor Center is down the road that way.
Okay. So this is where we're at right now.
Yeah.
And that is something else, which maybe we'll see someday.
Right. What you need to do is find out exactly if they're doing the tours right now, or to see
When they're
get
doing
in this building right here.
Right. That's one across the street, right?
Right. We've seen numerous of these around South Dakota. Usually they're all fenced off for obvious reasons.
What?
Because they're still billeting. See, here's another illustration of South Dakota. The several different missile sites. Those are those fun little fenced-in areas. But these are the commands. These are where they would get the orders. When they go to launch stage. Of course, when we were in the command center is when we actually got to see the apparatus and everything all set up.
Right.
Also out at Ellsworth.
Right.
It's the fun part about being next to the base.
Next to it.
They get to show us all the cool toys. Oh yeah, here we go. Because everywhere where there was the big letter were the main headquarter buildings. And of course what's funny is some of these towns, I mean, they weren't much for towns, period.
Well, that was kind of the point, because they wouldn't have to worry about
there was nothing out there, so
losing too many people.
Castle Rock, Arpan, Spearfish, St. Ange, Whitewood, Stoneville, Red Owl, Marcus. Right about number 11 is where Cooper was.
Hmm.
Your new little map.
Okay. So that,
how much it is.
well, the sign said it was 12, and that's not too bad. It is. So what we can do is take a picture of the phone number or look it up and call them, and then set up a date. So we're at the Minuteman silo. We did the museum, and now we're going to see if we can do the other part. It looks like we can. We've got some people over at the other place, and so if we can, you guys are going to see inside. Minuteman Missile Historical Site, a launch facility.
By phone or online.
I'm not sure if that's still effective, though.
We'll ask the guard that's at the gate over there.
It is breezy and hot today.
The president is yelling at Dimitri that Russia just set off the world-ending bomb, okay? And he says, why did you do it? He says, well, it's a deterrent. He says, Dimitri, you don't have a deterrent unless we know what you've got. Okay? So we were not trying to hide these things from anybody. We couldn't have if we wanted to. Again, with this open society, we've got hundreds of signs out in this 13,500 square mile area that covers the missile wing, telling you exactly where these things are. You might as well, they got a wall drug sign across the interstate there. Who has not seen a wall drug sign?
No, just kidding.
Okay. We might as well have put another one up there, say, Brewski's up there, it's Delta 1, you go another 11 miles down, and you got Delta 9, come on down and be afraid. Very afraid. They did not have, when these things came in, this missile wing ran from 1963 to 1993, Russia had nothing like ready to go, solid propellant, 3-stage rockets, gyros were constantly spinning, the missiles were sent to a preset target, every one of them. Okay? So we don't have to waste time targeting or any of that foolishness. Or we have big lanes that come past and go down once we got to practice that. One of two missile procedures, these computerized systems, and we're in the fight of that war every week. Sometimes several times a week. Sometimes we see anything that deters somebody from walking in there and getting killed. What was that?
High wire. Deadly folks. And they would send out their team. But jackrabbits, tumbleweeds, slugs, and bird swarms with insects, heavy snow were all set off at hypersensitive outer zone Doppler radar. Okay, now as years went by, I think it got more discerning. It came in, I think they're on their third or fourth iteration now. We still have roughly 400 vessels out there, but 1,000 we used to have. We'll talk more about that though when we get inside.
Security team that was here. Yeah. This the one that used to a lot. No. This is where they stayed. The sites are all unmanned.
Okay.
I like that they have a basketball hoop.
This was where anybody 14 miles away from us, at least 3 nautical miles away from each other. I'm going to stand over here so you're not looking into the sun. But what you see outside is a combination of communications and recreation, first of all, horseshoe pit, totally useless volleyball courts, and basketball hoop. Well, the crews didn't play any of this stuff. We came in the morning, left the next morning, 24 hours underground, one of us could sleep. Now, there have been many variations over the last 60 years. Currently, the crews go out and they send 2 crews out, one topside, one down, and every 24 hours they flip-flop for a week, 7 days out there. And we're doing 2 weeks out with COVID because they couldn't afford to get their whole crew sick.
Right.
But I could talk for a week on crew scheduling, so I'm going to go with what we do. 24 down and back home twice a week, or 8 times a month for us. With the volleyball court, you got 8 people topside. If you weren't eating, sleeping, or working, you had 2 people. And you got wind like this, average. Okay? So what does your volleyball game turn into? It's
Game of toss.
Soccer game played loosely between the confines of this barbed wire fence.
Really, the only people that played were if we had a mobile fire team show up and they had 4 players on that team, and then maybe we split it up 3 and 3 or something.
I thought it was called Fetch the Ball.
And this wind.
They show up in Perkins County at this rate.
with the couple points of interest, this thing looks like a barbecue pit. You can barely see it through the fence there. It looks like a barbecue pit bingo roller. That's where we burned up classified material. The big round thing out there to the left is hard receive transmit receive high frequency antenna. We can telescope it at 125 feet. Receive the right altitude, frequency, and transmit and receive. Pull it back down before the next radio blast. We were in operation from 1963 to 1993. That was from 1969. I was here from 1971 to 1975. So this place was 8 years old. Launch Control Center lies underground at the point of that building. Like the FS6 office headed out to the now we're going to be 31 feet inches down when we get to the part of the elevator. Standard satellite dish with TV that was added in 1988. Hard receiving antenna, that got shared off by a fence.
Oops.
We got a total of 4 extras underground here. Command control messages, maybe anything that receives high importance go to war type messages. Increasing your readiness or sending to war. Sewage lagoons in the back are garbage water that's pumped up from the sump pump down below from the bathroom up there, as well as the sewage from the top side. UH-1 Huey helicopters. I'm really excited. You can see they had a stock up there. Over high frequency transmit and receive antenna. That way you talk to the airborne command response. I've been on that mission for 7 years, after 4 years but I'm not giving tour on that. I will tell you a little bit about it. We carried the launch code for all 1,000 Minuteman missiles on board that plane, where we had no access to launch them. So we're about to get that kind of power to the captains and the crazy pilots. Okay? So all we could do was test them. The testing we did, all 1,000 missiles got tested once a week. Had very, very good failures. In the 11 years I was either receiving them or transmitting. So it was looked upon as a highly reliable alternate launch method for the Minuteman. Let's walk and talk a little bit here as we go down to this place. You have a rec room there, you have a diesel generator, you have 3 volts of power, commercial, just like we do in our house. We own that about 99% of the time. We go to the batteries downstairs and cross that. Utility manager for select diesel generator. We have a lot of fuel in excess of 3,000 gallons. Now with the missiles, of course, we didn't have anybody out there, so the diesels had to start automatically. We had to get help out in advance. The batteries would only go for several hours, so it's simple inside there. I'm going to go ahead and push open that door. Yeah, they can hear you. I'm getting tired of this hat screwed on my head. Yeah. My brain's going to explode. All right. This is the flight security controller's office. Here, he had a little Motorola UHF radio that he would keep in contact with his guys out there, checking out the sites. We were getting alarm down there. We'd go off. We'd call topside over this phone right here, direct line, and they would take care of that. When we came in the morning, we had to get cleared through the front gate. There were several different ways of doing that. I'm going to revert to the way that it was done when I was here. And that was, we'd call in on the radio and say, it's Captain Bench +2, trip 1222. And they'd buzz the gate there, and our deputy would shove it open, come in, we'd park the Suburban. I'd come in and hand my ID through the slot, vouch for the deputy, get a briefing from the facility manager if there was anything big going on, order our lunch from the cook. Then we'd come in here, grab that phone, say, George, it's Jim, ready to go. He said, okay, give me the FSC. Pass him over the FSC. who would then authenticate with the crew downstairs to make sure the guys downstairs knew we were good guys. He was a good guy vouching for good guys. Of course, we're out here 8 times a month. You know what I mean? So that became fairly obvious in most cases. We had strangers come in every once in a while, folks from another squadron. But by and large, they knew you by voice, they knew you by your facial recognition, whatever. So we were convinced they were good guys. We'd go ahead and buzz that lock on the door. We'd start opening the door downstairs. It took about a minute to do it. Usually we were swinging that door open as the elevator came to a stop down here. Okay? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to step on into that elevator right now, and you're going to figure out real quick why we only have 6 people on a tour. Today we added Mr. Tom. Come on down. Step on
Oh, well, we're going this way. Okay.
Everybody inhale before.
One side inhale, the other side exhale. You have to decide whether you're an I or an E. This is about the second set of 15-foot ladders. If anybody is questioning your ability or getting nervous or whatever else, now is the time to speak. Now or forever hold your peace.
This is why I'm glad I lost 85 pounds, so we're good.
All right, excellent. Well, let's see. Tom, we can all fit in there. Come
Okay.
on, we can
Come on.
Yeah, there's a.
They'll hold 2,000 pounds going down. Once, going down.
Okay, don't grope the ranger. You'd be amazed. Okay, a little checklist there for very sleepy people. As I mentioned, we had 2 people downstairs. One of us could be asleep. We usually got 6 to 8 hours of sleep. So this is just a reminder of the poor soul that stayed up from 5 o'clock in the morning till 9 or 10 when we changed over. Don't forget your hat. Don't forget your government credit card so you gas up at the thing. And don't forget your books to be burned. Well, we had a lady ask, well, what kind of books did you burn? I said, well, Lady Shadow's Lover, Kesher and Mariah, Port Noise Complaint. My favorite was Fahrenheit 451. Her eyes got bigger and bigger. Then I had to tell her the truth. Well, there was those little pages that we authenticated with. The FSC burn theirs, and we can put ours in a paper bag and burn later. Okay, that's 2 books and go there. We're going to step out here and you're going to see stuff that I did not see back in the early 70s. The artwork, Strategic Air Command ran the show back then. It's run by an outfit called Air Force Global Strike Command now. And that's the contra it wasn't. So there was none of this artwork stuff. It was around 1988. And the victory of the Cold War was painted in anticipation of the fall of the Soviet Union. And 1990, Lieutenant Tony Gatman painted this artwork on the blast door called blast door art. It's morale art, kind of like your nose art on aircraft. Okay. The meaning here is pretty readily apparent, even though it is a knockoff on Donald Street. It's got worldwide delivery in 30 minutes or less, or your next nuclear facilities. We could be over the North Pole and on most targets in the Soviet Union in 25 to 30 minutes. The top speed of the guidance and control warhead screaming over the North Pole in excess of 15,000 miles an hour. So very, very fast. The door itself was our major protection. And this is not to denigrate the guys and gals that were topside. They would go down shooting. But this was our last redoubt here. This door was kept closed and locked at all times, except when we're getting our meals from the cook or changing over crews. These pins are like blank vault. We had 12 of them. Everything was mechanically done. We've got a pump back there. It took about 50 strokes on it to withdraw them or to extend them. It would take 2 to 3 days with cutting torches, jackhammers, and drills to get through that door.
Wow. So
it was built sturdily. It had to be as strong as the rest of the capsule as well. Otherwise, you'd have a weak link in there. Very finely balanced. Took only 60 pounds of pressure to get this thing going, and 10 pounds to keep it going. So anybody in this audience could easily make that thing open or close.
You said the cook. Where was the cook? Was he topside?
Cook was topside along with the facility manager. You bet. We got foil packed meals here, which were flash frozen meals produced out of FE1 Air Force Base in Cheyenne. They were tested there for any poisonous material, put them in the lock and key, trucked to Ellsworth and to the other 5 bases, okay, and tested there, and then under lock and key sent out here where they were put under lock and key as well. Salisbury steak au gratin potatoes and chocolate cake I would eat 3 times a week.
Woo!
They were like big entrees, but they were do-it-yourself, huge TV dinners, basically.
You get anything you want. I mean, they pretty much have it. You got pizzas. And
Well, the mini wings were tasty but deadly. What we have there, down here. Now I'm going to get over here in the light and give you just a quick and easy on the background of this. Right at the Cold War, we had 6 Minuteman wings. Now we're down to 3. The ones that are active, Minot Air Force Base, the 91st, the 90th, down at FE1, Cheyenne, Wyoming. With most of their missiles are actually in Nebraska and Colorado, and the 341st Missile Wing at Knoxville Air Force Base in Montana. So each one of those has got 3 squadrons, just like ours. This is the 44th. We're down here at Delta Flight, kind of the southeast corner of the missile wing. This thing has been totally shut down except for here. They came along, pulled the missiles out, blew the launchers up, reutilized the missiles for targets for anti-ballistic missiles, and to launch satellites. Redid the uranium where they could, reprocessed it, and then just completely returned the thing to the prairie. They shoved that 90-ton launcher closure door. If you want to see that thing, Delta 9, 11 miles west, is open until 3 o'clock. Check it out. It's a massive thing that rolls off on 18-inch wheels. We'll talk more about that when we go to lunch and things. But all the launch control centers, all 5 in the squadron, were connected to all 50 missiles by what's called the Hard Site Cable System, the Higgs cable, shielded against electromagnetic pulse from high altitude detonating nuclear weapons and solar flares. Waterproof, they're by a thick coat of rubber, and pressurized, so if anybody physically hacked into it, okay, you get a pressure loss. 263 monitors throughout this huge area, 13,500 square miles, bigger than the state of Maryland. Send a helicopter out to see which contractor or farmer just dug our cable up. You know,
Oh no!
they'd be the one standing there, sorry, you know.
Shocking.
One of these things, you know. But it took any 2 of these launch control centers with 2 officers, usually a captain and a lieutenant, to launch any one up to all 50 missiles in there. So we could lose 3. If we lost 4 or 5, the airborne command post would take over and launch the missiles for us. There were separate cities. We could not launch any missiles in anybody else's city. All of our beans, bullets, blankets, Band-Aids, all of our supplies came from Ellsworth, about an hour's drive west, exit 167. They've got a nice little air museum there. That's the outside is open, so you can see the aircraft. Unfortunately, the inside is closed up now. It's being run by volunteers, and I have no idea what the status is on that. Okay, just to break it down into where we are right now, we're at Delta 1. The visitor center is 4 miles east at exit 131. We're 127 at exit 116. 11 miles west is our missile. If you hit wall, you've gone 6 miles too far. Trust your exit signs out here, not your GPS. If it says 116 and you're going that direction, you go off on the right, it'll tell you to go under the interstate about a half mile, and you'll see the glass enclosure. There'll be a restroom out there, a big parking lot. Walk about 100 yards up, look down through the glass, go ooh, ah, and leave, or dial the phone there with it's posted there and get a really nice 10 to 15 minute, 10 point of interest audio tour. Any questions on that? That's pretty fast delivery. Okay, as we step in, we need to remember 2 things, okay? Park Service's 2 main missions are education and preservation. I'm going to do my dead level best today to give you the best rundown that I can on the way it used to be. In return, I ask for your participation in the preservation part, and that involves not leaning on anything, sitting on anything, or touching anything, because we want everybody's kids or grandkids looking to the future to be able to come down here and say, what in the world is this? Maybe get a little education. Safety. We have tripping hazards galore down there. Everybody's got closed-toed shoes. That's good. We have chair rails that stick up like that all over the place. We've got floors that are uneven. We've got that grippy, trippy, anti-slippy stuff. Only it'll trip you. I'll give you another safety briefing on the way out. It's most dangerous there. Low passage going in. Keep your head lower and longer than you think you need to. Any questions from anybody? I go pretty fast. All right, well, let's head on in. We're going to go back 45 years. By safe, oh, thank you. Yeah, I don't need to hear. I'll lead the way to my place. Thank you, man. I've got a habit of doing that here lately, and I don't exactly know why.
That is it. That is the door. What's your step, girl? And what's your head?
Thankfully, all I felt was hair. So
Okay, first question I ask here is, what does this thing, the overall picture, remind you of? Anybody?
A basement.
Basement, okay, that's valid. Great basement. Anybody else, any thoughts?
Saturn V launch assembly.
There you go, that's a good one, that's good.
We're on a floating platform, aren't we?
Well, we'll get to that in just a second. Right now, we're not floating because it's all shored up, but normally we're held up from the ceiling by 4 shock absorbers full of high-pressure air, 2 here and 2 down here, called shock isolators. They hold this box up, and the part that you're standing on there, so it can bounce up and down 2 feet front to back, 2 side to side, 2. That was in case of a near miss, which was anything that didn't fill us out right. Well, as the years went on and the Soviets got more and more accurate, we had to just speed up because we couldn't bank on this anymore. We're going to put that to use today in our simulation of World War III. Well, we get submarine a lot and we get spaceship a lot from the kids, but the air came down filtered for all kinds of poisons, chemical, radiological, biological poisons. So it would cool the equipment we breathed, it would exhaust through that valve there. Both the intake and exhaust had overpressure sensors, so if they they felt like a blast from a big weapon, they would slam shut immediately, shutting us off from the outside world. The emergency air conditioning unit right there would come on, powered by 12 to 16 batteries under the floor. Okay? The batteries would not last forever, but we'd have enough to be able to fight the war. Now, as we step in, admire a lovely toilet off to the right. Avoid tripping on that first of the chair rails if you would, and we'll get it on in here. Yeah, well, you know, the reason I mentioned the toilet is we had a P2 prison toilet. I don't recall whether we had a seat on it or not, folks. It was that grim. Well, now you see everything all prettied up. They got 2 layers of privacy curtains on there. We had one old ratty canvas curtain that never got pulled. They were just guys down here. We had this cousin, ratty number 2, hanging around the bunk there. We usually got 6 to 8 hours of rest there. Well, what happened to change this, and why do we get this nice padding up here, acoustic padding cutting down the noise, and nice commercial carpet compared to chipped up, highly polished linoleum squares? Okay, we got women here in 1988. They put them together for the first year, and it was working fine as far as their relationships went, but it wasn't fair to anybody. They couldn't get promoted. Other guys were kept from being promoted on account of it, so I said, okay, we're going to put men and women together. The dreaded mixed gender.
Oh, no.
Oh, my gosh. You thought the world was going to end. Well, that came to an end there when the wives were involved. Their argument, you kind of see it, was you're going to put my husband behind a 16,000-pound blast door for 24 hours with who? I don't think so. The Air Force's answer to that was in or out. Decide now. It's going to be that way. If you choose not to be here, you and your husband gone. Okay? So that made it pretty positive. There was never any real good reason women shouldn't have been down here. But the wing commander at Malmstrom, the second woman wing commander, is a woman. So
that's cool.
They've moved right along very nicely. Now, the stuff that we did not have when I was down here, we did not have satellite communications. This took the place of voice communications, which we relied on and which we're going to show being in use today because it's how I fought the war, or would have fought the war 45 years ago. But the satellite communication is much more survivable, reliable. We did have submarine communications called the SLFCS, or the Survivable Low Frequency Communication System. We could receive the same messages that submarines were receiving. We could not transmit to the submarines though, and that was received on this little device here. Now the next thing that catches most people's eyes is the red box with 2 locks on it. What in the world you need to lock stuff up inside a place like this? Armed guards topside and a 16,000-pound door. Well, I'll tell you why. The stuff in there was hypersensitive. We each had a set of these authenticators. These were the devices. I cannot tell you what they look like. I can show you the little sleeves though. And they have a very attractive cover. Okay? So we got 2 of those, 2 keys. Okay, we would have to independently authenticate any message to fire nuclear weapons, to launch nuclear weapons. Okay, the keys. Deputy's key went in there. Commander's key went 12 feet forward, and we launched the control panel right here. They had to be turned within 2 seconds of each other. In each capsule, and it took 2 capsules, as I mentioned before, to do it. The other capsule had to turn theirs together, but it could be 5, 6, 10 seconds away from ours. The missiles needed 2 launch loads. They didn't care if they didn't get any more than that. They stopped counting at 2, and that's where we're going to go. Okay. What made this thing so interesting, back in Minuteman 1, I served 2 years in that. They were separated and they had the spring-loaded switches. That was so too crazy, it's going to knock their partners, and they had in 2 separate capsules in the same squadron and start World War III, because we armed the missiles by simply throwing a toggle switch. Now they had little copper safety wires there, but we also had wire cutters and a whole spool of it right there, okay? Because we used them when the crews, maintenance crews were departing. We had to watch the thing go from safe to arm and back to safe, so we knew that we could arm them if the time ever came. Well, all that changed in the 70s when we got the enable panel. You had to get a code there, alphanumerics, numbers or letters. We had no access to day to day, okay? So that enabled one of us to sleep. That alone was good enough for that, but that wasn't enough. They wanted locks on here, so the other guy who wasn't sleeping wouldn't be playing with the authenticators or bending the keys or anything like that. We didn't trust anybody, basically. 99% was about the level of trust. After that, there's always that chance that other person is not with us. Okay? Seals, PES seals. Step forward if you would. These little flimsy seals that were added after I left in 1975, they were checked every day by the oncoming crew. We had about 10 of them. You can see 6 of them right here. These must be critical components, things that can arm or launch nuclear weapons, because you can see the residue there. We checked it with a little light we call the Batman decoder. It was a blue light and a little magnifying glass looking for any breakage whatsoever. If that thing was broken all the way through, end of changeover, authorities called. A big deal there. You had them over the covers to the key switch, otherwise somebody could jam a pencil in there and break the lead off. You go to put your key in, and it ain't going anywhere, and you haven't got enough time, you don't see today, to dig it out, nor do we have the tools to dig graphite out of tight places. Okay, so that was the rationale behind that. Virtually everything we did was done by checklist. There's no mulligans in missiles, guys. There's no oops and nukes. You have one chance to do this thing right, and our job day to day was nuclear safety, making sure we didn't have any accidents, accidentally start World War III. Okay. The only thing I can readily think of that we did not use checklists for, 2 things. Pencil sharpener, no checklist. Toilet paper roll replacement, no checklist. Besides that, there were detailed instructions or checklists right here. There was no excuse for not getting that done right. All right, communications panel identical to the commanders. We could talk to each one of the 10 missiles here, Delta 2 through 11. It's an odd numbering system Boeing came up with. This is Delta 1, missiles Delta 2 through 11. They went around in kind of a clockwise fashion, with 1 being up near the 12 o'clock, or 2 that is being up near the 12 o'clock, and 11 up around the 11 o'clock. Okay? They were called in, and we could transfer their call. They had no ability to call over anything but their VHF short-range radios, so we would use our high-tech rotary device right there and hook them up with whoever they needed to talk to, wife, girlfriend, job control, their boss, whoever. Okay? Yeah, there you go. They'd have a hard time delivering it. Okay, the other launch control centers, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and Echo. We could get them all at once or one at a time. Talk to the security control center, the flight security controller with a pushable button, and your radios, VHF, UHF, HF radios, easily accessible right there. Now, computer itself here was kind of a wonder. This is a digital computer, 1972, had a magnetic core memory. What's the first thing that's going to go in a nuclear war? Probably your commercial power. What's going to happen when the commercial power goes? Motor generator on the floor is going to drop from AC over to DC, clunk. Lights are going to flash, and what would happen today if it was our computer here? First thing to pop up would be Bill Gates' flag. We'll be with you in a few minutes. Update your Facebook, whatever. Folks, we didn't have time for any of that nonsense. We had to get the same stuff up that was there just immediately. So it had what was called a magnetic core memory. Worked very, very well. Antique technology, though. Anything that happened out in the field, we got an update. At any of the 50 missiles, if it was important. We got a printout here, an alarm bell or buzzer and light or lights on the blue panel up there called the MSIP or Missile Status Indicator panel. That would drive us into our checklist and who to call, either the security police or job control or whoever else. So, and they would be the ones to fix it. We fixed nothing out here. Basically, we replaced little tiny bulbs in that thing. Of course, all that, if you went into a modern day launch control center, you would not see this. As of 25 to 27 years ago, they put the seats side by side, much better crew coordination. In this one, I had to look through the rear view mirror and yell at Tim over my shoulder or crank the chair around sideways, okay? Now, they each have 2 keys, and they sit side by side. They've got flat screen monitors. And what else? It just looks nicer, it looks more modern, but the fact is, folks, that capsule overall is 60 plus years old. So they're going to be replacing the entire system here, with the exception possibly of the launchers, which will have to be modified heavily, with what they call the Sentinel system that's being built by Northrop Grumman. They've got the contract to test in stage 1 on the missile, worked great, and they're moving on that. It's years away from being ready, though. So what these folks now, the guys and gals that are out there now are working with, is antique equipment. And it's wearing out. And I'm glad to see that they got a replacement for it. They probably won't go any past the 450 missile launchers that we got now. We've only got a little less than 400 missiles out there. They're all Minuteman 3s. The G missile with 1 warhead. They were built to carry up to 3, but the START treaty in 1991, which Mr. Putin effectively just ripped in half about 2 months ago by saying, well, we're going to follow its dictates, but we're not going to let you guys observe anything we're doing over here, which will the Russians mean, you know, or blow nose on, or whatever you want to do with paper that's worth that little. Okay, well, let's step forward to the commander's console and talk about this thing a little bit. Everybody get on nice and close here. Watch out for that's the real sticker right here. That's the one big accident I've had in 13 years happened right there. Lady had open-toed shoes, sandals, and I think she was on blood thinners, and it was a really, really bad deal. Okay, commander normally sat here. If the commander was in the rack, they only used to get 6 to 8 hours of rest or sleep a night. Deputy would be sitting here, but they'd monitor that blue board. Controls for your high frequency, ultra high frequency, that to talk to the aircraft. That pole I saw you that was poked up there, if it got knocked down, you go to number 2, arm it, call topside if there was a topside, and say, hey, get out of the way, this thing's going up at a high rate of speed, and then launch that thing and twang, it'd be ready to go. You'd be picking up wonderful high frequency radio again. Once again, the commander's key went in right there. Same communications panel, stuff we did not have. Well, let me point this out too. We could, with this system, when we changed over from Minuteman 1 to Minuteman Modernized, you could view the other flights in the squadron, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, or Echoes missiles. If Alpha, for example, had a fire, we could take over their time slot and take over responsibility for their 10 missiles. Any security problems, we just call up to our guy, have him call over to Alpha Security, Flight Security Control, and dispatch their own cops because we couldn't send ours out from here. Okay, we did not have a commercial TV, we did not have an AM, FM radio and cassette player. So assuming that my deputy Tim is in the rack back there, it's 11:30 on Friday night, I gave up needlepoint, I left my banjo at home, and I do not do solitaire, any solitary card game, anything like that. What could I be doing?
and your romance novels in the truck.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And you burned Fahrenheit 451 last week.
What can I be doing? You guys, yeah, you hit it on the head there. About 50% of us got advanced degrees. They got a master's degree, free or cheap. It was one of the real benefits to this duty. If you're a reader, you were home safe.
Woo!
You could knock out a master's degree in 18 months. You could, from there, you could knock out all the professional military education. You could stand and then read for pleasure. And the beauty of that is I had two little blonde-haired girls back at the base, and that way I was done with my homework. I'd go home and I could hassle with them. You know what I mean? So crew duty was very, very good for me. I loved it. Well, I spent 11 years on a crew and 3 years as a leader of crew dogs up at Grand Forks. Any questions before we jump into WW3, the big one? Alrighty. Well, Tim and I are down here. We're both awake because we received an emergency action message putting us in a higher state of readiness and over the primary alerting system. Now, the PAS, I do need to give you a little background on this. AT&T developed that in the late 50s, early 60s. Locked buildings, windowless buildings in big cities. New York still has theirs. Kansas City still has theirs. Now, I'm sure there are others out there. Reliable means of getting the word out. Back in this day, as time went along, it got risky, so that's why they went with the satellite rig. But we're playing this thing like it's the 70s, okay? Over the primary alerting system, we get the audible tone. We got about 12 to 18 of these things a day. A lot of times they were very simple. The SAC Airborne Command Post looking glass used to change over every 8 hours, and every time they had a new general, a new battle staff up there, for almost 30 years, they had less than 300 hours of downtime. Crazy reliable. We get that, and we go, Skybird, this is the SAC Airborne Command Post with a test of the primary alerting system, wind bull over, low tide over, looking glass out, and then we acknowledge that. Ring bull was 15th Air Force out of March Air Force Base, California. Low tide was either 2nd Air Force or 8th Air Force. They flip-flopped down at Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana, okay? So today, though, that comes across, and it starts off with for alert force, klaxon, klaxon, klaxon. So the air crews are involved. Okay, they're running the aircraft, or they're coming from the base exchange or whatever. If we're in a higher state of readiness, they're already out there. They're probably sitting in their aircraft now. They start engines, or start engines and taxi, or start engines, taxi, and take off. We don't know. We don't care. We're waiting for the rest of that message. And after about 3 preambles there, it starts in, and the message they give us is just garbage. It's numbers and letters, but we're real used to breaking that garbage. We got our book here, our code book. Tim says, "Boss, we got to get in that safe." And I said, "I agree." We went back and we popped the locks off. We didn't know the combination of the other guy's locks, so we could sleep without fear the other guy was playing with the authenticators, the keys. We get our keys, lay them down on the counter. We each got a separate set of authenticators. We pick the right one, and we open it up. And Tim says, "Boss, I have got a valid and authentic execution message from the president or their successor." I say, "Tim, I've got the same. Let's go." Now, we got a number of things to do in a very, very short period of time. We practice this over and over, though. First thing we're doing is putting the keys in the key slots there. Next, we put on our seat belts. That limits our movement, particularly mine. Tim has got a chair that will slide back on these rails back and forth so he can get to all of his equipment while he's buckled in. We wanted to be buckled in because if we had a near miss, something that didn't kill us outright, it would throw this thing all over the place. Okay, so Tim, first thing he's going to do back here is he's going to put in that enable code that we just received. Throw the switch down. All 50 missiles are enabled. They're armed, ready to go, but they don't necessarily haven't necessarily been picked to launch. It's up to the president, and we get his selection or her selection, dial it in there. It's a number, PLCA, Preparatory Launch Command Alpha, number from 01 to 99. He initiates up. 8 seconds later, the light comes on, goes off. The missiles know which ones are going, which ones are staying. We do not. We're just going to have to watch. We also do not know the targets on these missiles. They were picked months, years in advance by what used to be called the JSTPS, the Joint Strategic Target Planning Staff. The Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines got together along with maybe some allies, decided what targets would be hit by what weapons and what delivery system and when. The when being super important because you didn't want to commit fratricide, which is blowing up our own guys and gals, our own stuff, our allies and their people. Okay, so everything is timed down to the minute. Our key turn is even tighter than that. We have a very narrow key turn to make. So we're watching it hand-wound submarine clock up there. They went to a battery operating one, I'll see later. 24-hour clock set to Zulu time, Greenwich Mean Time, Universal Standard Time, whatever you want to call it. All the forces worldwide are looking at the same clock, plus or minus a few seconds, same time, okay? So as it hits 5 seconds before key turn, I call out to them, on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. We turn the key, hold it about 8 seconds, both of them. Message transmitting, little green light comes on, goes off. We release the keys. That's 1 launch vote. How many launch votes did I say it took?
2.
Two launch votes. Okay, we're going to step you through the what's called terminal countdown. Okay. Okay, it'll be enabled all the way across there, and not all going to go. Though, remember, launch commanded. First launch vote. Launch in process. Second launch vote. Interzone security. A whole bunch of things are happening now. That 90-ton, 180,000-pound launcher closure door that protects the missile is going to roll off the top of that thing, clearing the launch tube in less than 3 seconds. Oh, wow. And accelerating till it sails off the rails at the end. There's a whole bunch of ideas about how far it will be tossed. But I've heard that that south end of the fence is built to break down. I can tell you it is built differently. The ends, the corners are built differently than the north end. So I don't know. Anyway, it gets clear there fast, rolling out on 18-inch wheels about that tall and that wide, driven by 2 gas generators that force a piston down, tied to a pulley and a cable about that big around. Literally slings that thing off. As soon as that's done, well, as soon as it moves away from its nesting place there, that interzone security alarm goes off, okay? It's one of the number of interzone, very serious alarms that we had, okay? The next thing that's happened immediately after that is the upper umbilical is going to pop off up at the guidance and control up below the bomb, pop off using explosive charges. Another explosive squib is going to fire, dragging that whole mess up against the side of the launch tube, getting it out of the way of the missile taking off. Okay. The next thing that is going to happen, and pretty much simultaneous with the rest of that stuff, is you're going to get the outer zone. The radar picks up the movement of that launcher closure door going off there, and then stage 1 fires and the missile lifts out and the lower umbilical separates, giving you a missile away as long as it's one of our missiles. Now if we look over at Alpha's, we would not see that, but by the lights we could tell that missile had launched. So we're making slashes down there, the ones that launched, so if we lose power, we'll be able to tell which ones launched, and we're making our launch report to the Airborne Command Post. The ground guys and gals are gone. I mean, Ellsworth's command post has been cleaned off like scum off a pond. Kilo, our alternate, has also been bombed out. The Russians had SS-18s aimed at us. These things would dig a 400-foot hole. The standing joke, even when I got here in 1971, was, Jim, don't worry about the blast from nuclear weapons. The fall in the hole is going to kill you anyway. There's a lot of that going on. Anyway, we make our launch reports. We're tightening down our seat belts. We're on borrowed time now, and whack, we get hit by this massive pressure wave. It just tosses this thing around. You notice, I don't know if you looked at the coffee pot back there, but when you go by it, that gives you an idea how well things are cinched down. You didn't want any. How bad would that be to get killed by your coffee pot?
I survived a missile, but I got killed by coffee.
Taken out of the war by your coffee.
Java kills you.
Kills. Steel kills. Anyway, anything that we can't tie down, when this thing just started boosting up and it got real serious, we'd have tossed jettisoned over the side and let it fall underneath the batteries down there, okay? So, this stuff falls down, and 30 years of dust filters down like on snow, and things quiet down. We're both alive. Tim's back there brushing himself off and says, "Boss, I got bad news for you." And I said, what could be worse than this? He says, well, our elevator shaft collapsed.
Oh, no.
We're not getting out that fine-tuned door that you can push open so easily. We don't have any help. You know, everybody's gone. He says, we're doomed. We're going to be found by archaeologists like 2,000 years from now. Those guys are going to come down here and say wise things like, what strange religious practices? So tell me, you're being dramatic. You know we have an escape hatch that says, boss, you're 100% right. How could I forget that? We got 15 minutes of training on it the first day of missile school. He said, okay, you wise guy, tell me exactly how that thing works. He says, well, this is already flopped down, so we're going to drop that little drawbridge down, and there's a big orange 544-pound steel door that leads through a 3-foot corrugated steel tube filled with sand, terminates 5 feet below the surface with creosote 2x4s and a waterproof membrane. Then you dig out from that, and then you dig up 5 feet. Honest, yeah.
Oh.
You hope. And, it pops up between the flagpole and the little culvert that's out there. So if you ever want to know, the rumors that it ended up under the pavement, a lot of that stuff's hocus pocus. You know, there's a lot of. Well, the thing is, we'll get to this in just a second. Anyway, so we were down here. Right after the explosion. I mean, it's going to take time to do that, okay? So we got to get the water and the food under there. We got the Geiger counter, no anti-radiation suits. So, you know, we got inflatable pillows and all kinds of cool stuff, you know. But, and we also have an oxygen regeneration unit back behind those 2 black boxes. There's a little stubby gray thing, potassium superoxide canisters, 2 of them, and a flywheel-driven fan, okay? So, we're back there. I'm hooking it up there, and it says, "Oh, you got to crank this thing X number of RPMs for 2 hours a day."
Oof.
Well, Tim's up there working on that door, and he says, "Boss, do I really have to do that?" And I said, "Well, you're the deputy, and that thing's called the deputy smasher." So he says, "It's terribly dangerous. I mean, nobody's ever opened, and they haven't. There's over 100 of them built. Nobody's ever opened one from the inside. Okay."
So the ones that have been decommissioned, they've never tested it to see.
They dug in from the top at Whiteman on one of them, and they found out that the little tube wasn't 5 feet below the surface. And this is a 2-star general that told me this, who observed it. He said, "Jim, that thing was 11 feet down." Now, you know what? Your chances of slim to none just went to none. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, they've never opened one of these that I've ever heard of. Okay, so anyway, where was I with that story? Okay, he's up there. He grumbles. He gets up there and he releases that retaining strap, and the thing falls back against the 6 chains. The sand pours out down between this launch control center and the capsule, oozes down underneath the batteries down under the floor here. And he's up there digging, and I'm back there figuring that thing out. And I'm cranking, I'm sucking the CO2 out of the air and replacing it with oxygen. And we flip-flop every so often and have a little snack. About 4 days later, Tim pops up like a big prairie dog, calls down, and we walk hand in hand to the nuclear wasteland back to Ellsworth.
What's left of Ellsworth?
And nobody at all ever believed that story, but everybody wants a second way out. It's a psychological wonder right there. Mm-hmm. It made the difference, I'm sure, between people saying, "Hell no," and saying, "Well, you know, if you got a chance, you know." Any questions on anything?
We got a radiation suit.
Yeah, no radiation suits. Okay, who would like to have a picture taken by the Commander's Council? I'll take it for you if you would like. Anybody?
That's funny.
They make great Christmas cards. All right. Let's see if I can ask you just not to lean on anything, and let's see if we can have everybody else kind of pull back here. Yep. All righty. You can pretend to be turning the key if you miss part of this journey, folks, and I'll tell you why. The floor rises up and it trips people when you step down, and it launches their heads into that yellow and black thing. That's the technical term for it. But it's padded, but you still don't want to have a close encounter with it. Okay, so nice and slow as we go through.
So watch your step and keep your head down.
That's the rebar.
That's the rebar for the launch control center.
For the launch control center?
Yeah, the number 18 rebar, the stuff that we're used to is that stuff, and this is number 18.
Oh, wow.
This thing could take 1,000 PSI over pressure. I failed to mention that, which is huge, but, you know,
It's all reinforced by concrete. It's all
well,
crisscrossed in there.
You got 4 feet of concrete out there, so the blast door had to be equally strong, otherwise you'd have a weak point. Yep. Alrighty. Once again, watching out here, it steps up, then it steps down, and it goes up. Right there, you probably perfect. Look at that, yeah, alright. There's John Marley, taking a feature.
All right, there we go.
Entrez-vous, s'il vous plaît.
You gonna sit in the corner this time?
That happens to really good one out there. I may have mentioned that before. Their idea of good time was nobody ever makes mistakes ever. Zero defects. Well, unfortunately, folks, as we all know, we are human beings who are born to make mistakes, okay? So if you'll take a look at the little sign on the top of the elevator cap, tell me what is wrong with that sign.
You mean they didn't have a style check? Come on now.
Yeah,
I just said Bill Gates was helping
It's
you.
the emergency exit or emergency if you're French, okay?
Emergency?
I like
Two things went
emergency.
wrong there. You had probably a 1 or 2 striper who didn't ever go to a spelling bee in his life. Gets a hold of the stencil machine. He says, "Well, boss, I'll handle it." Well, he handled it. I don't blame him. That's just ignorance. But what happened after that is when the guys had put this foo-foo stuff on here and this stuff and repainted this thing, they painted around the damn thing instead of painting over it and re-stenciling it. You see that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good. It's up there and it's labeled.
Historical.
Yeah, it is. Well, but we can't do it.
Or hysterical.
Hysterical.
Yeah, historical and hysterical. Tell you what, folks, we're going to gather here in a little room for just a minute. I need to pass on a couple things to you. I'm going to close this thing here so we little there. And I'm going to grab my flat hat so I look all official while I do this. Man. Can't be a ranger without a flat hat. Is that a heavy duty? That's a heavy duty. Let's see, I better close the door here, otherwise I'll forget to do that. We won't be able to use the elevator for next week. Well, we all know that. Two things, folks. One is a saying that I really like, and it goes like this: we sleep safe in our beds because rough people stand ready in the night. And the other is the number one rule in the intercontinental ballistic missile business, and it goes like this: the pointy end of the missile must go up. Thank you very much.
Very nice.
Thank you. Let's see, we're going to go out this way, Tom. Yep. All righty. Oh, boy, it's like a blast.
Into the brightness.
Whew.
Oh, man.
Back into the heat. Oh, it's the end of summer. Bunny! Bun. It's like anything give us those oh, do I go? Do I stay? What do I do? Yep, I see the bun. There he goes. Bun.
Well, Delta 9, like I say, it's got one day for free. That's an hour and 4 miles up. Catch it. Oh, come on. It's open till 4 and 9 is open until 3. So, it's up to you. Anything else?